Hello, everybody. I was just coming back today to give you a history of my surgeries and how I found out that I got endometriosis and some other general backstory of the things that I've been through. So, I had my first child at 18. When I had my first son, my pregnancy was fine all the way up until I got to 7.5 months. And then one day I was just at the store and part of my back broke and I started leaking fluid. And I went into the hospital and they took me out of labor. They kept taking me out of labor for about 2 weeks. And they sent me home. And about a month later, at 7 months, I gave birth to my son at about 32 weeks. So he was premature, but he was fully healthy. He was mostly developed. He didn't have any problems. He just ended up being in the hospital for a week and a half after he was born. So after that, I decided that I wanted to get on a more permanent birth control, and I got Mirena. It's an IUD that they place in your cervix. And during the time that I had Mirena, I got it placed in, I want to say, in November. By the time January came, I was having really bad headaches every day to the point that I couldn't see. I was in so much pain, I could go into the hospital because I was having this stabbing pain in my pelvis and nobody could figure out what was going on. And I finally went to about the third ER and they told me they couldn't find my strings to the Mirena, and it had perforated. It had went through my cervix, so they had to cut a part of my cervix and open so they can pull it out. They took that out there in the hospital, and I was fine for a while. I didn't have any pain, and then I got pregnant at 22 with my youngest son. And when I got pregnant with him, within the first 3 months, I started having major issues. At 3 months, my body kept trying to go into labor. They had to sew me up. They put me on bed rest. So I was on bed rest from the time that I was 3 months pregnant until the time I was 9 months pregnant. I gave birth to my son then. He was perfectly healthy. He didn't need to stay in the hospital. He didn't have any problems. We came home 2 days later. But I started having pain more and more. So in between the time that they took out the IUD and I got pregnant with my second son, I was going to the ER almost every day, if not once a week. I was going from Henry Ford, Providence, all the DMC hospitals. I was going out to the suburbs, going to hospitals. Like, I have been through every health system inside and outside of the city of Detroit. I've been through them all at least 2 or 3 times in those years. In that time, when I was going to the hospital, doctors was telling me that I was a drug addict. I just kept coming in because I wanted drugs. There was nothing wrong with me. I was making this up. It was all in my head. I had mental problems. I needed to go see a psychiatrist. I was a hypochondriac. And even my family the same. I got told that I was lazy. I was trying not to go to school. I didn't want to make anything of my life. It was a lot. It was very hard, very stressful, and it was a lot of my mental health. And it made my bipolar and depression worse. So when I had my second son, I instantly went into PPD, postpartum depression. So with that, the whole cycle started over again, going to hospital after hospital after hospital. But when I had my son, I had got my second son. I had got my tubes tied because the pregnancy was so horrible with being on bed rest for 6 months. Like literally bed, bathroom, bed. The only time I could leave the house is when I had to go to the doctor's appointment because they were really worried that he was going to fall out of me. So when I started going back through all the health systems again, I got to Providence and I got to this gynecologist. I won't say her name on here, but if anybody want any information on her, she's a very good gynecologist, and I still see her to this day. She just doesn't specialize in endometriosis, but if you want just a great regular gynecologist, she's awesome. But anyway, I was seeing her, and it was the first time I ever had a doctor listen to me. So when I seen her for the first time, we wanted her off. And the doctor, I came in the office and she sat me down and she talked to me for an hour and listened to everything. Like I was telling her everything. Like I was tired of fighting with doctors. I was tired of being called a drug addict. I was tired of being called a dope fiend. And I felt like because I was a young black girl that these doctors weren't listening to me. I was tired of fighting. I was depressed, I was exhausted, and I was in pain. The pain was real. I was not making it up, and I just wanted somebody to listen and to help me and to find out what was wrong with me because I couldn't take it anymore. At that time, I was ready to give up on it all, and I feel like it had a lot to do also being postpartum depression, and also I'm bipolar, and so like PPD and being bipolar and having the pain in my pelvis every day, and it's like no one is telling me anything. Like all they kept doing was giving me STD tests and ultrasounds and tests for like UTIs, and they always came up negative. And I'm like, obviously I'm in so much pain. I'm not, active. So especially after I had my son, the pain was just so bad. I couldn't walk. So I'm like, I'm not active. I'm not doing anything. I need someone to find this pain, figure out this pain. So she told me she was going to give me a surgery to go in and just take a look to see what's going on, to see if she can figure out what's wrong with me. So she did the surgery, and when I came out the surgery, the first thing that the doctor told me when I woke up from the surgery was that when she tried to get a camera through my tubes, because my tubal ligation was where they just cut and burnt the tubes, that she couldn't get a camera in, because even though they were still cut and burnt, they still should have been able to see from each side that it was so much endometriosis in the tubes that they had to take my tubes out right then and there. And if the pain didn't get better in 6 months to come back, well, fortunately, it didn't get better. It got worse. I went from just having pains and to having these pains and these terrible menstrual cycles to the point where I was wearing diapers for the cycle, and I was going through diaper after diaper, like hours. So 6 months later, I went back and I got a partial hysterectomy. And so that left me with just my left and my right ovary. So at this time, those was my first 3 surgeries. So I had a tubal ligation. Then I had the laparoscopy where they went in, they looked in my tubes, in my whole everything down there, and they found out that I had endometriosis, and they diagnosed me with endometriosis and took my tubes out. Then I went back in and got the hysterectomy. And after the hysterectomy, I felt great. For 2 years, I didn't have any pain. Everything was fine. My life was back to normal. And then one day I was asleep. In the middle of the morning, I woke up because I felt a pop on the inside of my body. And it was the most excruciating thing that I ever had went through. And I was trying to figure out, like, how do you pop inside of your body? It was inside of my pelvis. I didn't know what was going on. I had to be rushed to the emergency room. And that's when I found out that I had cysts on my left ovary. The cysts were so bad that it wasn't bad enough for an emergency surgery, but they did schedule me for a surgery that was 2 months out. And then the pain started getting worse and worse, between the time I got scheduled and had the surgery. I started having gastrointestinal problems. Like, if I got gas or anything, I felt like I was going to die. And I couldn't understand why. I knew I had endometriosis, and I was trying to figure out what did the endometriosis was doing. So when I had the surgery, they only removed the left ovary. They went in, there was no cyst on the right ovary. There was no no endometriosis on the right ovary. But the left ovary had a cyst that was so big that was on a part between my stomach and the cyst, the outside of my stomach and the cyst, that it had connected my ovary. The cyst in the ovary and the outside of my stomach. The cyst was so big that it was pushing my ovary onto my colon. So my colon had endometriosis on it that combined the colon to the ovary. It was so much endometriosis, they had to go in and cut the endometriosis from off my colon to remove the ovary because they were attached. That's why every time I had gas, it hurt so bad because it didn't have anywhere to move because the ovary was putting pressure on it and basically, squeezing it. And then I want to say for about a year, I was fine again. And then I started having the same type of pain on the right side. This time I didn't have a pop, but I just started having the pain, and I was like, this pain feels similar to what I went through before. And when I had surgery, I went to the hospital. They scheduled me for surgery again. And when I had this surgery, they told me that somehow there was endometriosis on my right ovary. And I was so confused. I'm like, y'all removed the left ovary. There was no endometriosis on the right ovary. They claimed to remove all the endometriosis that was in my pelvis. I don't have any other womanly organs because I had the hysterectomy. So they kept trying to figure out how my endometriosis keeps coming back. So they removed that ovary. They removed more endometriosis. And at that point in time, I was lifting for menopause. So now I'm at full menopause. I have a full hysterectomy. I've had 4 surgeries to take out my organs, plus the 5th surgery already that I had to tie up my tubes. And it kept going on to where I kept getting sick. I kept getting sick. And now it was getting to the point that I couldn't get out of bed. So I'm going to the doctors. And I had moved to Georgia. And I was in Georgia at this time. And I went to the Endometriosis Center of America. And I seen one of the doctors there. And the doctor told me that in my consultation that he knew for a fact that I still had endometriosis. They couldn't explain how it was still growing, why it was still growing, where it was coming from, because I'm in full menopause, which means I shouldn't have any estrogen, and that's what feeds the endometriosis. So they took me off of all my hormones to try to stop feeding the endometriosis. And they charged me $40,000 out of pocket for surgery. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. So I came back home to Michigan, where I'm from. And I found the specialist. And he wasn't an excision doctor. He was the type of doctor that burned off the endometriosis and I cut it out. And this surgery was the worst surgery that I ever had. I went in with just endometriosis, it's like pain, and came out with endometriosis, renal papillary neurosis, IC, and he didn't take any pictures after, and from everyone's understanding that he didn't do anything to the endometriosis that was there. He went around and played with some other organs, and that surgery left me 100% disabled. My surgery was scheduled for December 7th of 2021. The last day that I worked was December 2nd, 2021, and I have not been able to work since then. The surgery was so bad that I ended up on a walker, and I could barely even walk for a good 2 years until I could find another surgeon, which I did. But he had a 9-month waiting list for surgery. So I had this surgery. So at that time, that was my 6th surgery, the surgery that left me permanently disabled. And I'm not sure what he did. No one's sure what he did. All I know is my ureter is extremely messed up. My kidney is partially messed up. My left kidney, my bladder has endometriosis now, and I didn't have endometriosis in my bladder ever before. It's very frustrating when you put your life in the hands of someone and they leave you worse off than you started. And, just a little bit of story in between the time I had the surgery that left me disabled, and I had the surgery from the doctor that really helped me. My mental health had gotten so bad, I had to check myself into a mental hospital for the 2nd time. I couldn't take care of my kids. I couldn't take care of myself. Mentally, I wasn't there. I was extremely depressed because as I already had been through so much for so many years, so much pain, so many hospital visits, So many hospital admissions, overnight stays to get to where you think you're getting better and you're on the right track, just to only be pushed back, set back further than when you were when you started. It's debilitating, it's emotionally frustrating, and the hardest thing is when I had to have my doctor, who was the gynecologist who found my endometriosis for me, had to write me a letter saying that I was disabled, because she was the one who was telling me, like, you're never going to be the same again. I can't even explain. No one still, it's been 4 years, 3 years, no one still can figure out what happened, what he did, how he did it. And I'm not the only one. There is multiple women that I've seen on Facebook in certain groups. I've even started my own group that has been severely messed up by this doctor. Some way more worse than me. That is depressing and is disheartening that people with endometriosis do not have a fair shot, because no one believes it, because they can't see it and it's not spoke about. But there's so many women that have it, and I know for a fact, because I'm in 4 groups with hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of women, and even some men, not many men, but born men who have it, and it affects them. Like I said, you can lose lungs. A woman lost part of her lung. A woman died. People have lost part of their colon. They still talking about taking out my bladder. I refuse. But get back to the surgery history. So after the surgery that messed me up really bad, I had another surgery with one of the greatest doctors in the state of Michigan that does endometriosis excision surgery. And he removed all the endometriosis. So I don't have quite much of endo pain as I did before. But no, that was not the end of it. And that was not my last surgery. So that was just the endometriosis part that was just floating around in the space where my woman parts was at. But the endometriosis in my bladder, he couldn't do anything for. So I had to get surgery from another doctor who specializes in endometriosis in the bladder. She's an excellent doctor. And unfortunately, the surgery itself is only a temporary fix to what I'm the IC. There's no surgery that can permanently remove IC. There's no surgery that actually can fix IC, that can remove it. So when I had my first IC surgery, I thought it was gone. I thought that, it'd be gone. But once you get endometriosis in the bladder, which turns into IC in some cases, it will never go away. So I had my first surgery on my bladder. Basically, they went in, they cut some endometriosis off on the outside and the inside, and they ran something like a saline solution through my bladder, but it's, medicines and stuff like that, and they gave me some nerve injections, and it lasted, I was fine for 5 months and didn't have any problems or any pain. And then I went back in and had it again. And the surgery, for the most part, went well. But the nerve injections that they gave me left a little bit of nerve damage. So I was having tingling in my legs and stuff. But for the most part, I was fine. But I wasn't eating. And when I was eating, I can't hold anything down. And last year, that surgery was last year. Last year, I lost 60 pounds. Um, because I haven't been eating. This year, 2 weeks ago, I just had the surgery again. And now I can't eat at all. It's something to do with the nerve damage. It's now causing a gastrointestinal problem. The IC is still there. The bladder is still very much in a lot of pain. I feel very crappy on a daily basis. I haven't been able to eat. I can't hold anything down. Like literally, I can't even hold down water. So when you look at people and they say that they have endometriosis and you might not be able to see their pain and you might not be able to understand what they're going through, please just sometimes think that everything is not seen. Just like you can't see cancer. And it might not be as dramatic as cancer. It may not be as hard hitting as cancer. But it definitely feels like cancer to us. We might not necessarily can die from it. But there's no cure. There's no cure for endometriosis. Even if they can remove all of it, once you get past a certain stage, they still there's no hope to reverse it after you pass a certain stage. They're still doing a lot of research on it. They're now, in the last 5-6 months, talking about coming out with new ways to diagnose different forms of endometriosis besides in stages, because people have different stage endometriosis depending on the severity, but it's in different, it can spread to literally any organ. It's hard to live with. It causes a lot of people to be disabled. It's hard to fight for disability for it. Most women will never get disability for it. And we can't work. We're throwing up all day, having severe menstrual cycles, can't eat, can't sleep. I live with a heating pad or an electric blanket everywhere I go. I buy hot hands to keep hot hands on me because I never know when the pain ends. And from the time I was 19, I'm 32 now. I'll be 33 in a few months. And so, almost half of my life at this point. People, I have meet people all the day, all the time, and they look at me and they ask me, how do you live? How do you keep doing it? And the only answer that I can seriously give somebody when they ask me when I do it, how do I make it through this? How do I have all these surgeries that keep going on? How do I keep trying to give hope into having another surgery and hoping that it'll get better? How do I wake up and keep saying that maybe one day, even though some days I feel this defeated, I feel that I can't do it, I feel that I don't know why God placed this on me, but I believe that He did this and placed this on me And the reason that I keep doing it, and keep getting through it, is because of one, I keep waking up every day. As long as I'm got breath in me and alive, this is the life that I have. And for two, I really think it's meant for me to tell my story to help people and to help bring awareness to this endometriosis thing, because people think it's a joke. I know people see me in the last couple of years being more outspoken about of my pain and my daily struggles and my mental health that I'm going through on Facebook. And sometimes people probably think that I'm doing it for attention, or I'm just looking for attention. And it's not attention to myself that I'm looking for. It's attention to what endometriosis does to women that I want people to understand. I don't need attention. I go through this struggle. I've been fighting this struggle. I've been had people tell me that I didn't want nothing from my life. I've been had people tell me that I wasn't going to be nothing, that I was lazy, that I was just being irresponsible, that I need to get it together, that I need to stop making excuses, that I really need to figure out what I want or what I'm going to do, because this is not it. Making all this up. I've been through all that. That's fine. I've lived my life in the negative. But now I want to live my life in a positive, to where I know I'm going to live this for the rest of my life. I have been told by two of the top doctors in the country that this is just going to be the rest of my life. I have beyond the point of fully not being in pain. My muscle memory remembers the pain. So I'm never not going to be in pain. It's just the fact of managing it. It's just hard. It's just hard to go through. It's just hard because sometimes I feel alone. And I know that there's plenty other women out there with endo that feel alone. And I want you to know that you're not alone. We're not alone. There's hundreds and thousands of us. And I also will be taking time to read comments on what people want to hear more of. I do a lot of looking into different endo things, but I'm open to looking into suggestions of endo topics that people want to see on this channel, and we can dive into endo statistics and different stories together. So thank you. Everybody have a good day.